Hello, Scooby Doo fans! Welcome to my Season 1 Episode 7 review of Scooby Doo, Where Are You? So last time I continued my 2024 summer special with a review of Season 1 Episode 11 of the new Scooby Doo movies, so I hope you guys enjoyed that. But of course today, I'll be covering Season 1 Episode 7 of Scooby Doo, Where Are You? Titled Never Ape an Ape Man, which was released on October 25th, 1969. The short synopsis of the episode is: the gang take jobs as extras on the set of Daphne's uncle, John Maxwell's, movie set of The Ape Man of Forbidden Mountain. But a real ape man has been sabotaging the movie, and Mr. Ink need to catch this ape before he causes filming to end permanently. So as per usual, I'll be watching Season 1 Episode 7 of Scooby Doo, Where Are You on the Scooby Doo, Where Are You? The Complete Series box set. This box set has every episode of Scooby Doo, Where Are You? Every episode of the original series. Even the third season of the Scooby Doo show, because Warner Brothers loves to push that fake third season, which I talk about in other reviews. And I talk about the special features in my Season 2 Episode 8 review, so if you want to know my thoughts on all the special features, there's good stuff on that, and I talk about it in my Season 2 Episode 8 review. Now, as far as the reception of this episode goes, I believe most fans don't really like this episode. There is a minority of people who try to defend this episode and try to make it sound good, but most fans of Scooby Doo, Where Are You? Really aren't big on this episode and consider it one of the weaker episodes of the original series. And in my original review, I didn't like the episode. I said it was a bad episode and I thought it was a very weak episode. And I didn't like the comic book adaptation either that I reviewed not too long ago. So, will this review, the episode has one last chance to redeem itself and maybe see it in a new lens, maybe make me see it in a new way. So, will my opinion go up in a, really good or average way? Or will it stay down and will I still consider it one of the worst episodes of the original series? Well, let's find out, shall we? So let's look at the episode to see whether I think it is a good or bad episode of Scooby Doo, Where Are You? The episode begins with Fred, Daphne, Velma, Shaggy, and Scooby taking jobs as extras on the movie set of The Ape Man of Forbidden Mountain, directed by Daphne's uncle, John Maxwell. Uncle John states that filming hasn't been going well due to the fact that local legends say that a real ape man is haunting the grounds. During filming, the lead actress of the film, Candy Mint, gets attacked by a real ape man who tries to throw her off a narrow bridge. However, Scooby comes in and saves Candy, and then after settling down, they decide to go look for the stuntman, Carl, who was supposed to be playing as the ape man, but they believe that it was the real ape man and not him. I gotta say, though, I laugh my fucking ass off every time Scooby beats up the ape man. So, funny shit. One of my favorite scenes of the episode. Love seeing Scooby kick the shit out of the ape man. And it's so good that it gets referenced a lot down the line in the franchise.
Good show, Scooby. You sure sent that thing packing.
You were so brave.
Oh, Scooby-Doo.
They find Carl locked in a trunk, and he says a large hairy animal locked him in there. Candy and Carl quit until the ape man is caught, and Daphne and the rest of the gang offer their help to her uncle to find out what's really going on, and Uncle John lets them do so, but only on the condition that they be careful during their investigation. Now, few things to note here. First, Daphne isn't really convinced of Carl's story because she finds it fishy immediately, just before they start their investigation, and for some reason, Shaggy says the word Zooks instead of Zoinks.
Zooks, there should be some good clue hunting around here.
I really don't understand why Shaggy says Zooks instead of Zoinks. I don't know if it was because Casey may have misspoke and screwed up and they didn't catch it. I don't know if it was a typo in the script and Hanna-Barbera didn't catch it, or if they were experimenting with a new word to give Shaggy, like a new catchphrase, and it didn't really take off. I'm inclined to believe that it was probably an error, either by the script or by Casey, and nobody caught it. But regardless, the first place Mystery Inc. look is in the old mansion for the Ape-Man, where they find a half-eaten hamburger, when Daphne points out that gorillas don't eat meat. The gang takes this as their first clue. Shaggy was about to eat it, but they stop him, and then Shaggy changes his mind after he realizes an Ape-Man has eaten it, and Scooby decides he'll eat it instead. Later, the gang encounters a live parrot saying,
What's the password?
then a motionless Ape-Man model is hurled towards Shaggy, who demolishes it in the struggle. And I mean he fucking demolishes that shit. Shaggy has really good internal strength because he like destroys the stuffed dummy, only stopping his panic attack once he realizes it's a stuffed dummy. And then he tries to play off like he knew it all the time, and Scooby's like, oh, brother. Later in the library set, Freddy winds up falling through a trapdoor thanks to Daphne, which is a nice bit of role reversal, as usually Daphne's the one to fall through traps by somebody else triggering it, or by herself tripping it. But this time, Daphne hits a button, and Fred falls into a trapdoor. And then the Ape-Man disguises as Scooby Doo to encounter the real Scooby at a phony mirror. How the hell he acquired a Scooby Doo mask, I have no idea. It really isn't explained, and I have no idea how the Ape-Man would get a mask of Scooby done that quickly. There's no way he could have there's no way he could have done that. It's just impossible. Once unmasked, Scooby manages to ward off the Ape-Man, but only temporarily, before finding Freddy and the gang setting up a trap, and Shaggy and Scooby are sent out as bait, thanks to some Scooby snacks for Scooby, and Shaggy getting a Shaggy snack for the first time in the series, made exclusively for him. I gotta mention, I do love, while Fred's gone, seeing Shaggy and Scooby kind of take charge and, get rid of the Ape-Man and try to, trap him and get rid of him. I think it's really cool that when Fred's not there, Shaggy and Scooby kind of step up to the plate and, take charge. So I do find that pretty cool. So Shaggy and Scooby go into a room with a pool table and some trophies set up on the wall. And when they start playing a game of pool, they discover the Ape-Man posing as a hunting trophy head. And they manage to lure the ape to the trap, but it backfires with Shaggy being caught instead of the Ape-Man, due to some misfortune, with Scooby fogging up, Velma's glasses, and Velma hitting the wrong switch at the wrong time. Also gotta mention that Shaggy tries to hit an 8-ball in the corner pocket as soon as they start the game. I'm pretty sure that Shaggy would have lost the game immediately, unless if he hit all his balls before then. I'm pretty sure he would have lost the game immediately to Scooby if he did that. But I do like the little chase scene with Shaggy and Scooby in the pool table room. I think it's a little bit it's kind of cool seeing Shaggy and Scooby play pool and luring the Ape-Man to the trap.
What's that noise? Ruh-roh. It came from this room. Wow! Look at those trophies. A deer, a rhino, a lion, and a... Ape-Man? Ape-Man? Don't be silly. That's only a trophy. Come on, let's play a game, Scooby. Trophy. 1, 2, 3, 4. Hey, ready? Wait a minute. Watch this shot. Run, Roo, Ree. 8-ball in the corner pocket. Sorry, Scooby. Uh-oh. Run, Roo, Ree. Let's see. Scooby's over there. Then who is? Go ahead, go! Here they come. Ready, Velma?
All set, Freddy?
So the 8-Man escaped the basement due to him finding a secret wine casket that ended up being a secret cave. The gang follow him through the secret cave, which leads back to the dressing rooms of the movie stars, as well as others. Shaggy and Scooby enter a trailer, and Shaggy finds an old-timey camera, and they play around with some masks and other costume parts, just like typical Shaggy and Scooby shenanigans. It's kind of funny, actually. Until the 8-Man enters without his mask, like the dumbass he is, prompting Shaggy to snap a photo before fleeing. The two run into the rest of the gang, and before Shaggy can reveal the picture, the 8-Man chases them back to the old mansion and upstairs. Freddy then flips a switch where the stairs convert into a ramp just like it did earlier, setting the 8-Man sliding and crashing into a pile of furniture. Just like I said the last time, I don't know how Fred would know what button to push to make that happen. He was not there when the gang did it the first time around. He was in another room. He fell through the trap door. Sure, maybe somebody could have told him about the button, but it's highly unlikely. I think it's a little bit contrived. It would have made sense if somebody else did it, but the fact that Fred did it kind of is a bit weird because he wasn't there the first time they did it, and it's very unlikely that somebody would have told him. It's possible, but I doubt it. But anyways, the picture Shaggy took reveals the 8-Man unmasked, and he's revealed to be, not a shocker, Carl the Stuntman as the 8-Man. Who the fuck else would it be? Sometime later, Daphne's Uncle John explains that Carl was angry for not being cast as the movie's male lead, so he decided to sabotage the movie by scaring everyone away as the 8-Man. This is just a stupid motive, and I'm gonna go into it in my outro. But first off, how did he get back to his trailer to pretend to be locked in his trunk? Because that just, that was that's like impossible. Like, he literally fell down the cliff. There's no way he could have got back to the trailer before the rest of the gang and Uncle John did. They immediately went looking for him as soon as the 8-Man fell down the cliff. So how the hell did he get back there before them? Did he have another secret passageway down that cliff? Was he just good at climbing or something? And there was no mention of there ever being a male lead, so that's just one of the many reasons why this is a stupid motive, among others. So I don't know why Carl tried to push so hard for this. But Carl pretended to be locked in the trunk by the 8-Man so no one would have suspected him, which was quite stupid because Daphne was able to suspect that his story was fishy immediately, and who else is it going to be? Candy Mint can't be a suspect because she was attacked as soon as, the 8-Man was shown on screen. Uncle John is Daphne's relative, and relatives of the gang don't count, but also he was there when the 8-Man attacked. So literally, most likely logical solution is the guy that dresses up as the 8-Man is most likely the 8-Man. And what do you know? The obvious answer is obvious. Uncle John thanks the gang for helping him, but Velma says that most of the credit should go to Shaggy since he was the one to find out who the culprit was, which is quite true because Shaggy did a lot in this episode, and so did Scooby. But they wonder where they are, and they find Scooby and Shaggy having some more disguise fun as Scooby puts on an 8-Man's head, and Shaggy wears the Scooby Doo mask from earlier, which still, I have no idea how the 8-Man acquired a Scooby Doo mask. How did Carl acquire such a mask of Scooby Doo to be done? There's no way he could get a mask of Scooby Doo done that quickly. He didn't know Scooby was coming that, to the set at all. Like, he had no way of knowing that, so it's just ridiculous. I do find the shenanigans, though, with Shaggy and Scooby playing dress up kind of fun. And the episode ends with them being complimented for their talent, as Shaggy suggests to Scooby that they ought to be in the movies, which the Great Dane wholeheartedly agrees. And I'm quite glad that came to fruition. I'm going to give Season 1, Episode 7 of Scooby Doo Where Are You? 1 star out of 5. So yeah, my opinion hasn't really changed on this episode. I still consider it one of the worst episodes of the original series of Scooby Doo, Where Are You? If not, maybe the worst episode of the original series. But I'll start off with the positives of the episode first before I get into why this episode is really bad in my mind. So starting with the positives, I think the first positive I have is I thought Daphne was good in this episode. I liked how personal this mystery was to her because it was a family member asking her for help. And so that immediately gave her personal stakes in the mystery because she wanted to help her Uncle John out and, save his movie. So to me, Daphne did a good job because, she wanted to solve the mystery. She was kind of catching on that Carl was maybe was being fishy about his story, and it turned out to be true. And she turned out to be right because he was fishy and he ended up being the villain. So she had good, keen instincts. She was very determined to solve the mystery of the episode. So to me, Daphne was good in this episode because of the personal motivation that this episode brought for her. That she needed to help her uncle, by saving his movie from getting shut down. This is an important movie to him. She wants to do everything she can to help save his movie. Next, I really liked Shaggy and Scooby in this episode. I thought Shaggy and Scooby were both brave and really good leaders in this episode. In fact, Shaggy and Scooby led a lot of the way throughout this episode, at least in my mind. They were brave because Scooby wasn't really that scared of the Ape Man. Twice he stood up to him, barking at him, and also kicked his ass at one point. So that goes to show how non-threatening of a villain is. If even Scooby can beat this villain up. And Shaggy led the way when Fred fell through the trap door. And it was just Shaggy and Scooby and Daphne and Velma. Shaggy and Scooby stepped up to the plate and took over as the leaders for temporarily until they could find Fred. Which is what I've always said, is that when Fred's not around, Shaggy's kind of like the secondary leader in my mind, because who's the other guy that leads the group besides Fred when they split up? Shaggy, right? Because Shaggy leads with Scooby when they split off together, or if it's Velma, Shaggy, and Scooby, Shaggy leads that. Sometimes Velma might, depending on the episode. And Fred leads either himself, Daphne, and Velma, or just him and Daphne. But usually I consider Shaggy to be a secondary leader of the group. So when Fred's not around, this episode showcased that Shaggy and Scooby can really step up to the plate and be good leaders when their normal leader, the guy that they trust as the leader, the guy that they let lead most of the time, Fred, because they think because he's good at making decisions and is very calm and very, and analyzes everything. Shaggy kind of has to fulfill that role now that Fred is out of the, is off somewhere. Like, they don't know where he went. So to me, I really liked how Shaggy and Scooby were characterized. They had a few good scenes together, a few funny scenes together. But for the most part, I really loved how brave they were standing up to the ape man, and how good they were as leaders in this episode and taking charge when Fred wasn't there. But even when Fred was there, they still did a good job. They were bait for the trap. They led the ape man there. Shaggy took the vital picture that revealed the ape man's identity, even though it was fairly obvious who the ape man was. So I really like Shaggy and Scooby in this episode. I thought they were great. And then the final positive that I have is I do like Carl the stuntman outside of costume. I do kind of like that he kind of faked being a victim and was like, oh, the ape man trapped me into this, into this trunk. I do kind of like that. And he pretended to quit the film and say, yeah, I'm out of here until the ape man's caught, even though he knew it was him. I kind of like that he played victim, and, it was a little bit funny, so... And he did make an impression outside of costume, so that at least was something. Although he didn't do any favors for himself, because even though he did it to throw suspicion off of him, it really didn't help his case at all. People still weren't buying his story. Even Daphne wasn't buying it, and when he ended up being the villain, so... But yeah, I mean, outside of costume, Carl, I do like how funny it was that he kind of played victim, you know, and tried to cover his tracks, even though it really didn't work. But A for effort, at least. That's all I got for positives, though, so I think it's about time to get on to the negatives of the episode and what really makes this episode so bad. First off, I don't really like how Fred and Daphne are utilized. I feel they're very weak and underutilized. Sure, there's that moment where there's that bit of role reversal where Fred falls through the trapdoor instead of Daphne, and Daphne presses the button that Fred falls through the trapdoor with. So I do kind of like that little bit of role reversal. But besides that, I really didn't see much for Fred and Daphne in this episode. I didn't think Fred really led the way. I think Daphne, Shaggy, and Scooby did a lot of the work in this episode, more than Fred and Velma. Velma didn't really piece together any clues and solve the mystery. Shaggy kind of took the picture to solve, you know, who the identity of the Ape-Man was, even though it was fairly obvious. So, I mean, they just didn't really do much, and I wasn't really happy with what Fred and Velma were given in this episode. I think they could have been utilized a lot better. Then we have the villain of the episode, who I thought was very terrible. So the villain of the episode, the Ape-Man, was very weak. He wasn't scary or threatening, but he also wasn't entertaining to watch. He was very boring the whole time, mainly because the gang didn't really fear him. Like I said, Scooby kicked his ass in the beginning of the episode, beat him up so badly. I mean, that's a low. That's embarrassing. If a villain can't even scare Scooby Doo, then that's terrible. And it's just like, and you could probably make the argument like, oh, if you got chased by an ape, you'd be scared. But, I mean, if Scooby and the gang aren't afraid of them, and they can beat him up and scare him away, I think if I was in that situation too, and I see the gang doing what they're doing, I'm pretty confident that I could hold my own against this Ape-Man. This Ape-Man doesn't pose a threat, and it isn't presented in a scary way, but he isn't fun or entertaining to watch. He's just boring. He just doesn't do anything at all. Because the gang don't really care about him. He's just kind of like a nuisance, really. Like, there's just nothing great about this villain. He's not scary or threatening. He's not fun to watch. He's just plain boring and weak. And if the gang don't fear him, and they kick his ass and scare him away, why should I fear him? Why should I, you know, feel like, wow, if I was in the situation, I'd be scared and you know, would run away? No, I would fucking kick his ass just like Scooby, because if Scooby could kick his ass, I could probably kick his ass. And if Scooby and the rest of the gang can scare him away, I'm pretty sure I could scare him away. So it just, you know, if the gang aren't scared of him, what's the likelihood that I'm going to be scared of him? Very low. In fact, none at all. If the gang aren't threatened or scared by it, I'm not scared by it. So that's why I don't consider the villain a good villain. He's very weak, very boring, and isn't interesting at all. Not scary, not entertaining, just plain ass fucking boring. Then we have the main event, which is his motive. Oh boy, where to start with his terrible motive. Yes, it was awful. So his motive was basically that he wanted to sabotage the production due to him not getting the leading role in the film. Okay, there are so many issues with that. Uncle John said he didn't give him the lead, and that's for good reason, because he already has a lead actress. There's no supposed male lead, so I don't, like, he's not going to gender swap the lead role just for Carl. But also, Carl's not an actor, right? He's a stuntman. If he wanted to be an actor, he should have gone to fucking acting school and gotten some credentials and worked for himself, and then became an actor, and then he would have gotten work. Your job is to be a stuntman, not to be an actor. And also, like, why is he so concerned about getting the lead role when he's playing the titular monster of the film, the Ape-Man? I don't know about you, but stuntmen get a lot of credit. I mean, look at Kane Hodder. Kane Hodder gets really recognized for being Jason Voorhees. There are movie monsters that we know. We know people behind the mask of the movie monsters that we celebrate and we love because we love the antagonist. And if this film had taken off, this could have given him more work down the line. Because they would have been like, wow, this guy played the titular ape-man that took off in the movies. Let's get him in here so he could play this famous movie monster. And then Carl would get more work, and then that would build up his credentials, and then people would eventually know who he is. And he would become a name for playing famous monsters. So, like, I don't understand why he's so concerned about having his face in the film when he's playing the main villain of the film. That's his job. But also, there could be good things to come out of this. But also, let's say he did sabotage the production. What was that going to achieve? Because it wasn't going to get him in any lead role afterwards. And say he asked for a lead role in the next film he does. And he doesn't get it. Is he going to do the same thing? Because if he does, then people are going to catch on that, hey, maybe this guy's trying to pull stunts to try and ruin our production. And then he's going to lose his job and credentials like the idiot he is and be kicked out of the movie business because he's a fucking moron. Like, there's so many problems with this motive. Nothing is good about it. It's not good or interesting. It is fucking stupid. It is dumb as shit. I don't understand what he was hoping to accomplish with this motive. It was awful. It's so bad. Like I said, like there's so many facets for it, between, him not being an actor in the first place, him not appreciating being a stuntman, and him, like, not understanding that doing this isn't going to change his, isn't going to change anything down the line. He's not going to immediately get a role just because he sabotaged the production. So it just is like, it's just a dumb motive. It's terrible. It's awful. I have no idea what he was thinking. It is the worst motive, I think, in Scooby Doo. Definitely the worst motive in the original series. And it is so fucking awful and bad. I don't know why he thought it was a good motive. But yeah, terrible motive. And and I could probably go on for a while about it, but we'll leave it there because there are other negatives to go forward with. Next, we have the mystery of the episode. Now, the mystery of the episode, I feel, was poorly executed. There was a mystery here, but it wasn't really executed well. So, the mystery, at least to me, was that we wanted to know who was sabotaging the production, right? We wanted to know who was behind it, why were they causing it. But the episode didn't really present it in a good or engaging way. So it really, you really weren't interested in it at all. You didn't care because the episode didn't really present it in a good way. But also the answers we get to the mysteries, such as his motive and why he ends up doing it, like I just explained a few minutes ago, because it's so unsatisfying, it makes the episode and the mystery unsatisfying as a whole because the answers we do get are awful. They're not good. They're not satisfying, answers to the mystery because the motive is awful. The guy behind the mask is so obvious. And it just, it's not presented in an engaging way. And we don't get good, satisfying answers to the mystery. And instead we get, a poor motive and, an obvious man behind the mask. So that's why I feel the mystery was poorly executed in this episode. It's there, but they didn't do it in a good way. Then we have the clues of the episode, which I didn't think were good at all. They didn't really help point towards a motive or a suspect. You had, the half-eaten hamburger, the script that was left out, and if you want to count it, the picture that Shaggy took. I don't really consider the picture Shaggy took a clue. I consider it more just a switch up of the usual formula, which is instead of the gang unmasking the villain, Shaggy just takes a picture of it and we see who is unmasked. rather than them unmasking the villain right then and there. Although they probably did after the picture was taken, just to verify what Shaggy took was correct. Obviously it was. But yeah, the clues, they didn't really point towards anything. The idiot Carl, like, left a half-eaten hamburger. Why? I don't know. I don't know why he left it on the floor. And he left a script out. Like, he was just begging to be caught. Like, I don't know what he was doing, but yeah, he didn't do himself any favors. But these clues don't really point towards Carl. They just kind of say that, oh, somebody, it just is like a script and a half-eaten hamburger. But I mean, anybody could have access to that. It doesn't really prove much, but it also doesn't point towards what his actual motive could be. So yeah, I mean, I didn't really find the clues that great. I think they weren't that great. They didn't point towards a motive, and they didn't point towards a suspect. So they didn't fulfill the role that they were supposed to. They were there, but they didn't do a good. They weren't executed well at all. There was also a lack of suspects in the episode. Like I said, there was only one suspect in the episode, and that was Carl the stuntman. And it was pretty obvious that it was him, because he was the only other guy that had access to the 8-man suit. So of course it was going to be him. It either had to be him or a nobody. Either one would have been bad, but it was so obvious, because it was not Candy Mint, the lead actress, because she was right there when this 8-man attacked. And it was not Uncle John, because, one, he's a relative to the gang. Relatives of the gang are off the table. They're never going to be a suspect, because no relative of the gang would ever do that. But also, he was there when the 8-man attacked Candy. So it literally was him. Like, it was literally Carl. Like, Carl was the only other guy that wasn't there and was dressed up and had access to an 8-man suit. So yeah, it was obvious. There was no mystery there. It was obvious who it was. His story was bogus and terrible. He didn't do a good job at throwing suspicion off him at all. The gang weren't convinced. And what do you know? He ended up being the villain after all. The guy that had the 8-man suit ended up being the villain. Wow, what a shocker. I found the atmosphere to be non-existent and dull and lifeless. There was no atmosphere to speak of in this episode. And it doesn't help that the villain being weak and the setting, which I'll get onto later, not being the best. That doesn't help the atmosphere at all. No tension or suspense, no creepiness or eeriness, nothing, no sort of atmosphere in this episode. Practically non-existent and dull and lifeless. Finally, we have the setting of the episode, which is also dull and terrible and boring. Because the setting is just some mountains and a generic fake house set. It's just a boring set that has like a generic fake house. And it's just up in the mountains. Like, it's just not appealing to the eyes. It's not interesting. There's nothing engaging about the setting. It's not a cool Scooby Doo setting. And Sandy Duncan's Jekyll and Hyde executed this premise better than this episode, because in that episode did a better job conveying like movie sets and how they could be fun and interesting and how you could do them well. But because this was an on-location set somewhere in the mountains, I mean, that could have been fun had it been a good setting, but the on-location setting that they chose, the mountains, were boring because they're just plain. They're boring. There's nothing appealing about them. And the generic fake house is just something that has nothing to it. It's just a fake house. Like, there's nothing interesting about that. It's just a dull and boring setting. Nothing interesting about it. Terrible setting. Overall, guys, I would not recommend this episode to fans and newcomers of the show. It has a tiny amount of good stuff, like Daphne, Shaggy, and Scooby being great, and it being a little bit funny how Carl was outside of costume. But that doesn't help save the episode. This episode is awful. It's bad. Terrible villain. Terrible motive. dull setting, dull atmosphere. Mystery wasn't engaging and was poorly executed. Clues were poorly executed. Fred and Velma weren't great. Just so many problems with this episode, and this may very well be my least favorite episode of the original series. I'm almost positive that's the case. And you know, there are some not so great episodes in the original series, but this may be possibly the worst one of the original series. It has its fans, and look, if you're a fan of Never Ape and Ape Man, more power to you. I'm not trying to take away that you like this episode, but I just don't see anything worthwhile here. I think, you know, I think people don't understand the hate, but it's really because the villain isn't good. The villain isn't good. His motive is fucking awful. Fred and Velma aren't the best. The mystery and the clues are poorly executed, and the atmosphere and setting isn't that great. Yeah, Daphne, Shaggy, and Scooby are great, and Carl outside of costume isn't bad, but that's not enough to help save an episode. A few good stuff isn't enough to save the episode. It needed more than that, and it just wasn't. It was a boring episode to watch, and it's not a one that I recommend to watch when it comes to the original series. Skip this episode. I don't recommend it at all. Anyways, I hope you guys enjoyed the review. Please give it a like if you did. Comment down below your thoughts on the episode. Do you, for some reason, like this episode? Do you think I'm being too harsh with it? Are there things that you see that I'm not seeing? I'm open to hearing why you like this episode. So if you want to talk about why this episode isn't as bad as I say it is, you're free to say so. I'm open to a differing opinion. Do you hate this episode? I'd be interested in that as well. Like, are you like me? Do you think this is like one of, if not the worst episode of the original series, and you like see all the flaws that I see with this episode? Or are you somewhere in the middle where you just think it's okay, but it's not good or bad? I'm curious for your thoughts, so let me know. And subscribe for more Scooby Doo content like this, or if you're just interested in any of my other content, I'll have more Scooby Doo reviews on the way as part of my 2024 summer special. So you guys don't have to worry about that. There's also going to be Scooby Month, which will have more Scooby Doo reviews as well. So if you love, you know, everything Scooby Doo, and you love, love the Scooby Doo franchise, you love talking about these characters and all these and the shows and the movies and all that, you know, and the games and books, then come join this channel, because I'll be tackling all pieces of Scooby Doo media. My goal is to hopefully one day review every piece of Scooby Doo media. I want every piece of Scooby Doo media to get its attention that it deserves. I love Scooby Doo. It's my favorite franchise. It's my favorite thing. I'm a diehard fan. It's the thing I'm most passionate about. So if you love Scooby like me, come join the channel. We can have multiple discussions about Scooby. You can also follow me on Facebook, where I have discussions about things we talk about on both my channels, and Twitch, where I hope to live stream in the future. So in my next video, I will continue my 2024 summer special with a review of Season 1, Episode 12 of the new Scooby Doo movies, which is the first Harlem Globetrotters episode. So if you're interested in my thoughts on the first Harlem Globetrotters episode, then join me next time. But of course, after that, we will continue my re-reviews of Scooby Doo Where Are You with my Season 1 Episode 8 re-review of Scooby Doo Where Are You, titled Foul Play in Funland, the Charlie the Robot episode, and an episode that a lot of people love, including me, when I first reviewed it. So I have high expectations for that episode, and hopefully we will get back to some good Scooby Doo Where Are You content, especially after the mess that was this episode. So if you're interested in hearing my thoughts on the Charlie the Robot episode, then join me after the Season 1 Episode 12 review of the new Scooby Doo movies. Anyways, thank you guys so much for watching this video, and as always, peace out.